Welcome to another episode of the STR Sisterhood. I'm your host, Stacy St. And as always, I just want to say thank you for inviting me into your day today. Now, before we get started, I want to share a quote that I recently read that resonated with me. And it says, "Time you enjoy wasting is not wasted time." Aren't those beautiful words? We all need to relax some and spend time focusing on doing whatever in the heck we want. That's all about self-care, my friends, and it is so important. Those beautiful words come to us from Martha Trolley Curtin, who is a renowned author back in the early 1900s. Who knew? All right. So in this episode, we are sitting down with the one and only Stephanie Figueros. We are diving into her business and the systems and processes she uses, the day-to-day operations of remote hosting, where she is hosting her properties completely from another side of the country, and how she's also leveraging virtual assistants in her business. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into my conversation with Stephanie. So today we are here with Stephanie Figueros, and we have so many fun things to talk about. But first, I just want to say, Stephanie, thanks so much for being with us.
Yes. Thank you so much, Stacy, for having me. Super excited to be here and to connect with you.
Oh my goodness. So let's first, before we dive in to our convo, let's have you walk our listeners through a little bit about who you are and where you live.
Yeah. So I am a former registered nurse. Technically, I'm still licensed, but I no longer practice in nursing. And I live in Southern California in the Inland Empire, which is further east, like you're going to Palm Springs. That's usually how I say it.
There you go. And how did you transfer from a registered nurse to real estate? What did that look like for you? And did you start off your real estate journey in short-term rentals?
Yeah. So for me, honestly, I wanted to have multiple streams of income and not just rely on my nursing income. That was like where it stemmed from. And then it kind of got me down the side hustle rabbit hole. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many more things out there. And so I was actually going to do e-commerce. I really wanted to do that. And real estate popped up, and my partner was like, hey, you should watch some of these YouTube videos on real estate. And I think he was just trying to get me to put all my obsession about getting multiple streams of income towards real estate. I already knew about it, but after really being ready to receive that information, that's when I started. And short-term rentals came up, and I thought this would be such a fun asset class. And to be honest, that's kind of what made me start. And it was in short-term rentals. And it's part of it is because I like vacationing and I like fun. And I thought to myself, if we're going to do this, why not do it with something fun? So that's kind of where the short-term rental side came up for me.
That is amazing. So I, like you, love having multiple streams of income. I feel like it is not only a great way to go to sleep at night to know, okay, I don't just have to rely on one source of income, but it also allows you to pull levers in order to make a bigger impact. So if you see something is really taking off like wildfire, you can pull that lever and make that money rain faster, and have more control over your financial future. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. That's options. That is what the goal really is. And I think that's like what most people think of when they think of financial freedom and all that. It's truly just options. And that's all I wanted.
So curious, what market did you purchase your first short-term rental in, and how did you find that market?
So, first deal ever was actually an arbitrage that was 30 minutes away from me. That was like my proof of concept. But when I was ready to buy, but it just came up sooner. So I said yes to something. I had no idea how to do it until I started doing it. But Tennessee was the first place that I actually purchased my own property in. And it was in the Smoky Mountain, Eastern Tennessee market. And I found that honestly through meetups. And in California, we have no idea what goes on the East Coast. So when you hear Dollywood, I know that's a very, very East Coast thing. People in California have zero idea. Like I'm going to be going to Tennessee in September to visit my cabins. And they still have no idea like where I'm going, other than they're like, oh, that's where Dolly is. I'm like, that's why I'm there. And then, so I just came up at a meetup. I was asking, hey, what market are you in? It was literally just copy your way to success. So I just went where someone else went. And I just, again, research rabbit hole. And then I said, you know what, that actually seems like a good market. Why not? And then I realized that's like one of the OG markets of short-term rentals. Yeah. So I get it now.
That's so great. So talk to me a little bit about your portfolio and what does that look like today?
Yeah. So honestly, majority of it is remote. So I'm in California, Texas, Tennessee, and Florida is where it is. So pretty spread out. And we manage all of them here from Southern California. And I go visit the properties once a year. So that's where we're at right now.
Okay. And do you go on tour? Like, do you go from Tennessee to Florida or you going back and forth?
You know, in a perfect world, I would just go on a tour, right? But honestly, I just go back and forth, and I have no idea when I'm going to go to Texas, but I'm like, I should go before the end of the year. So we'll see. But the Tennessee one's like the big one. That's like, we go there as a workation, right? So we're there for the properties first, but it just so happens we're right next to the national park, Dollywood. I want to go see North Carolina. So, that's we go once a year, and we probably don't even have to, but we choose to. So that's why we do it.
So I'm curious about a couple of things. You mentioned you go and visit your properties once a year. I also love going to visit my properties because they're at the beach. And the way that I look at it is, oh, darn, I have to go take a tax-free trip to the beach this week. You know, that's the way I look at it. And it's amazing. It's a great quote problem to have, right? But I'm curious, when you are visiting your property and you're managing it remotely, what are you looking for when you're going to visit? Or is it just to get your eyes on the property? Are you doing any optimizations when you're visiting? Are you meeting with your team? Talk to me about what that visit looks like.
Yeah, that's a great question. So most of it really just comes from putting eyes on it. Because they're operating, guests are there, but I still want to see, how it is, the wear and tear. And I always go with the assumptions that there are going to be things that we should replace. So I usually go to runs, look at the kitchens. Usually the kitchen items get a lot more wear a little bit faster. And sometimes the outdoor furniture. And then I go in to think of like, what am I going to do to upgrade the property next? So like one of my cabins, we've already decided we're going to put a fire pit. We always get those questions, but this area has been prone to fire. So we've been like super hesitant to add a fire pit, but we feel like we'll set it up in a way that's as far away from the house as possible, but we'll attract more guests. And then the other thing we're thinking about doing is maybe even adding EV chargers to all of our properties. So we're kind of going back and forth on functional amenities, so to speak. So we go in with the intention of we're going to see the house and we'll go at it and replace whatever needs to be, restock the owner's closets. I'll usually take the time to at least visit my cleaners once. I'll go to their office and actually bring them presents. So I'll typically will do that once a year just to show my appreciation, because remotely, these guys are your MVPs. So I want, we talk like we talk often, but not too often. But I like to do that face because they'll remember me and they'll know that I'm a nice owner. So if I ever ask anything, they'll say yes. Plus, I just think it's good to have those relationships. So on top of that, I like to see what's growing in the area. So like if they're adding new attractions, how can I highlight that in my listings? Or, maybe I'll think about buying another property too. So we always kind of go like house hunting and drive through for sale areas too. But that's kind of like what our trips encompass. So nothing too formal, but we try to have fun, but we do the business side first, right? And then we go have fun.
Go enjoy after that. I love that. And I love that you bring your cleaners, gifts. I think that, so often it can be really easy to forget all the hard work that our great cleaners do. I know yesterday I had a team meeting with all of my cleaners, and just to, share reminders and give feedback on ways that we can be a better partner to them. But I think it is unfortunately a situation where they are the eyes and the ears of our businesses, and oftentimes they don't feel appreciated. So I love that you do that.
Thank you.
Now, yeah. And I'm curious. So you started in Tennessee, and then where did we go next, and why did we choose that other market? So was Florida next? Was Texas next?
It was Texas. That was the next one.
Okay.
So now we were in California. We had our property that was local to us. That was in the arbitrage. Then we went to Tennessee. Then we went to Texas. And this was like all in a matter of like less than 2 years that we just hopped around. But we were looking in Tennessee and we just couldn't really find, something there. So we said, okay, let's look at one more market, and Texas came up. It was through a recommendation of, we were working with a brokerage at the time, and we were just like, okay, let's check it out. Because my idea was I wanted to diversify with different markets. So being in a mountain market, being in a city metro market, beach market for me was like a dream. And I love that you're by the beach. So I was like, all right, this is my budget. Where are the beaches that I can go to that are STR friendly? California coast is not very, very good friendly when it comes to prices. So the Gulf was it, right? I was like looking in Florida, looking in Alabama, and then I came out in Texas and Crystal Beach. And it's definitely more of a sleepy town, but I liked the vibe of it. I felt like this was a long-term buy and hold. That at the time I was like, all right, in time, this is definitely going to appreciate, just hold on to it. So we worked with a really good agent out there, and she brought us the deal. And we were like, okay, we went under contract on the Texas property because we found that first before the Tennessee property that we were looking at. So that's how we ended up in Texas. Now we had a beach property.
And now it's just all coming together for you. I'm curious from your perspective, knowing you're in multiple markets and very different geographies, right? What have you found to be the most challenging thing to navigate with managing remotely?
I think honestly, it's accepting the fact that you don't have control. You really have to, so I've learned to, instead of my boots on the ground, accommodating to me, I have to make the decision whether their process works for me instead. And I find the relationships way more cohesive. I know some people have like, this is the way it has to be done on every single reset turn. But then you're not really there to oversee that part. Are the guests happy? That's literally like my bottom line is the house good and are the guests happy? And let go of the rest. Because with the house that was close to me, my gosh, I was so uptight about it. And I literally had to, I just learned I can't sweat the small stuff out of state. And that was probably like the hardest transition of getting over that mindset. Now I'm like way more laxed about it. And it's just part of the business of being far away, but the guests are happy. The house is okay. We're good.
We're good. Now, I totally agree. I mean, I think obviously for someone like me, I have a feeling you're similar, but I call myself a recovering perfectionist, right? And it can be really easy to want everything to be just so. But to your point, we're not there, right? And so we have to trust in our process, trust in our systems, and trust our people.
Right.
How have you found good people in all of your markets?
So it's a mix of things. Referrals, I always try to go with, if I find a friend or a neighbor, I'll ask, who do you have and do you like them? And Tennessee, it was nice. I could do that because there's just a lot of infrastructure for it. But a lot of the other markets, I didn't quite have any allies at the time until like after we got the places and after I went to see it. So Facebook groups became my next go-to place because the nice thing about Facebook groups is you can see referrals. Even if you don't know the person, I'll DM people and be like, hey, I saw you have an STR. You actually use this cleaner. I'm close by. Do you mind like giving me some insight? How do you like so-and-so? And you'd be surprised how honest people, and now I have a new friend. So that's how I've done it. A lot of my folks come from Facebook groups.
Yeah. I love using Facebook groups to source people. That has been probably my number one way to find folks to interview. I mean, obviously, I think it's so important that we're, interviewing people and making sure they're aligned with our core values and making sure that they are, they have the same commitment to excellence, things like that. They're skilled, but it is so easy to find. I don't want to say it's always easy to find, but it's, I guess the better way to say it, it's so helpful to find companies or individuals that are referred by other people, because then you have peace of mind. Like, okay, I see these 7 other hosts that are using this company. They all say they're awesome. This might be a good person for me to start to reach out to, right?
Yeah, you get options. And I always go with I know they might not work, but I just want to talk to them and I'll make the decision if they fit, if their process fits with what I want and I'm okay with it.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And then I also am curious about systems. So, in my opinion, systems and processes are one of the best ways that we can make our teams work as efficiently as possible. How did you develop your systems over the years? What type of systems are you using? And what does that look like from your day-to-day?
Yeah. So, it's always refining. And I think with scale, we just get so obsessed with our systems and efficiencies. So I started off, not knowing anything and just using Airbnb, eventually graduated to a channel manager. I use Hostaway. I have my dynamic pricing. I use RankBreeze for just to check analytics. But one key tool that I've come to use, actually a couple of them. One is OpenPhone. I use that as my company phone number. So it's nice too because it's a Wi-Fi based phone number that you can have your team look at. And so I leverage now virtual assistants that help run the day-to-day stuff. But that company phone number through OpenPhone makes it to where I'm not getting the phone calls anymore through my personal cell phone. It's going to a shared line. So that one was major. The other one was getting a project management software tool. So currently I use ClickUp. I used Asana before, but I was able to pretty much put all of our SOPs, resources, property master list, walkthrough videos, everything in a centralized place. And also just like, what's the process after checkout that needs to be checked or before a guest checks in, that kind of stuff. So all those protocols are automated now through my project management software tool. And I wish everyone would do that because it makes it so much easier, especially when you're in multiple areas and you have a lot of properties to keep tabs on. Even just one property, you would probably have so much more peace of mind instead of being
I totally agree. So I use Monday.com for mine. And back in the early days, I used to just have everything on Google Drive, right? I had so many folders on Google Drive, but I have found that Monday.com for me in my property management business, I call it my business hub, and it's the place where everything lives. And it's amazing because our team members, and I know you mentioned you have virtual assistants. I also have virtual assistants and also a revenue manager and an operations manager and an onboarding manager, right? So all different people need access to the same information in different ways at different times. So when we have all of that centralized and easy to find, it makes everyone's life so much easier. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Like it's being organized. It's a basic fundamental thing of life, but I feel like a lot of people just don't. They just aren't as organized. And the more organized we make ourselves, the more we can breathe. But yeah, I used to be that person where I'm like, I think that's over there. Oh, that might be in this email. hold on. And yeah, so that's how it started. And now we're like way more in line. It's like more of a machine now that we have.
Yeah, totally. And it also allows you to grow more easily, right? So when you bring a new property on, all you have to do is check one of your templates or, duplicate something to get that new property on board versus, okay, I have to start from scratch and rebuild everything for this property, right? It just makes things so much more efficient. Now, I want to ask you also, you did mention virtual assistants. I have heard it through the grapevine that you have a virtual assistant agency. Talk to us a little bit about that. What was the impetus for starting that?
You know what? It was something, I think I manifested it, to be quite honest, Stacey, because I was like, it'd be really cool to have a VA agency one day. And at the time, I had my own VAs, and one of my hires, I didn't know this when I hired her, but she had an academy for virtual assistants. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I can see why out of all the 30 candidates at the time, I think it was over 30, she was the one. And I could tell like she was just really, really good. And I'm like, yeah, because you teach this to other people, other VAs that want to have remote opportunities. So her question was very simple. Hey, so by the way, I have this, do you know of anyone that might need a virtual assistant? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I know a lot of people that need this and don't know where to go. And so to be honest, that's kind of how it started. So we pretty much joined forces. But now we've grown a lot where, I don't know if I want to say I specialize in STRs with my VAs, but like a lot of our VAs happen to help STR and MTR people. But I'd say real estate as a whole, because we have realtors, we have social media bookkeepers, we have like a lot of stuff, but it just kind of turned on a life on its own. And so now we have, our in-house academy has grown. It's kind of funny because before that, they didn't have STRs being taught in the academy. So I brought that component into it. And then I do trainings on the client side once a month for folks to become better leaders of their people. Because it's a learning curve on both ends, right? So that's kind of how it started and grown. And I think that's how I manifested having a virtual assistant agency.
That's so amazing. I love that. And I love that you do coaching for your clients about how to be better leaders. Such a unique spin. And I also feel like that is so useful. I'm always of the mindset that a lot of people in our industry don't really look at themselves as entrepreneurs. And I wish that would change because if we're in business, if we're running any business, we are an entrepreneur, and an entrepreneur has to be a good leader, right? Has to be a good leader. What do you feel like are some of the biggest leadership gaps that you see in the market?
It's interesting because there's like it's like if I could do an FAQ, I probably should and make a post about it. But there's a lot of commonalities. And I noticed there's a difference if somebody has leadership experience in the belt versus if they don't. I used to precept, I used to lead others as a nurse too. So for me, I think it comes a lot naturally and just, I get it. But some of the gaps I think is people don't realize what their actual role is as a leader. Especially when they are upgrading themselves after doing the day-to-day, they have no idea what to do with themselves. And I'm like, your job is to now make your person successful. It's all about supporting. You can't do the work for them, but it's your job to make sure that there's no barriers in their way to do the role that they have and to do it well. So I think that was gap number one is, what does that even mean? Like, what do I do with myself kind of thing? And then the second part too is a lot of people make assumptions that they shouldn't be making about their people. Even over time, it's like everybody needs a reminder. Everyone needs a refresher, always be, coach, you want to have coachable people and you want to learn how to be a good trainer too. Because you aren't very good at conveying and having enough patience with your team members because nobody learned their craft overnight. It took a lot of people a lot of time to dial it in, and a lot of people are still figuring it out, of course. So I think sometimes we don't give our people enough grace because I'm like, these are people. This is AI. This isn't a machine. My cleaners actually thought when I introduced my VAs that it was AI. And I'm like, no, these are real people. She's like, oh, I thought it was like a machine. These are virtual systems. I'm like, no, they're just not here. Just like me. I'm remote. So are they. Like it's distance is relative, right?
Right.
So, but yeah, those are like the two, three things I notice every single time that people just have to kind of work on as they grow. And they'll realize it with time sometimes too.
I think also, I'd be curious to get your perspective on this. A lot of people that I know of who have VAs may not be empowering their VAs to the best of their ability. So I use multiple VAs on all sides of my business, right? And my coaching business and my short-term rental business. I absolutely see the value in being able to delegate work to people who are highly skilled, and quite honestly, much more efficient at a lot of these things than I am. But I find it interesting that a lot of people are utilizing VAs in their short-term rental businesses, but they are task-driven. What are your thoughts on being task-driven versus empowering them to perform a function? And do you feel like there's a place for each? I'm curious to get your thoughts.
I love this question because it's cool that you're thinking of it like that, because a lot of people don't, unless it's told to them. So yes, there are thinker roles and doer roles. I am to the type, and I've seen it, and I think this is also like a fit thing, because some people, they just want someone to do exactly whatever it is that they tell them. They don't want them to deviate from the process. And then there are others who are like, I want you to put two and two together. And, I'll give you the pieces. I want you to put the puzzle together. I'm definitely the type of person that I like to empower my people. I tell them all the time, my hope and the goal is for you not to need me. Mm-hmm. That is the truth. And I will never get upset for you to making the best decision that you thought at the time. Because many of this stuff is just common sense. But we kind of create this bottleneck where you're always checking, and they have to ask for approvals. You're kind of creating this bottleneck effect that you have to be the end all be all. And it's never too late to pivot, to start over, to readdress. And I've done this multiple times with my team where it's like, okay, we've upgraded to, you have permission from me to give up to the cleaning fee refund if you see fit, but this is the reasons why you should do it, and, treat it like it's your money. But you don't have to ask me. But if you have to do this, like once a month, we need to review what happened, because now we're trying to troubleshoot, like, where did the cracks fall? Because there's always ways to prevent stuff, but sometimes there isn't. But I mean, personally, I think empowering your VAs and your team just in general, whether they're virtual or not, is the way to go, because you want to develop leaders within your own organization. But there is definitely roles where you might need like a doer to stick to whatever, let's call it the script or what have you. But it just depends on also your style. I've met clients who did not like the fact that their VAs were too creative. Like they wanted them to stay in the box. And I'm like, but let them out. They'll do so much more. But that was just that client style. And then I have some people who are like me, they're like, I have to keep trying to push them, go fly. You can do it. I'll be the wind, right? And so it's like recognizing what the role requires and also the type of person you're hiring, because everyone has a tendency to be one or the other. Some people have a mix, but I do see like you're closer to this or to that. And so knowing what the role requires, and then understanding who you're talking to and if they fit that role. And then also knowing how to interact with both types of people is your job as the leader, because you have to deal with personalities, no matter what. So you just have to adapt to them.
Yeah. Personalities and problems, a double P, right? I also think that it's really easy when folks are early on in their short-term rental journey, and there's nothing wrong with this, right? Because we all want everything to be perfect and go so well, and rightly so. But it can be really easy to get stressed out by all the stuff, like all the things that could potentially go wrong during a stay, or the air conditioning went out, or whatever the case might be. And I feel like as we elevate ourselves as leaders, we learn how to rise above that stress and take situations at hand at face value for what they are. But I think the stronger leaders we are, the less impact it has on us personally, right? How have you learned leadership skills along your journey?
I'll be honest, it probably all came from nursing. I think I didn't realize how translatable so many of the skills I learned in nursing are to being an entrepreneur, a real estate investor, and business owner. Because to be honest, like one of it is you don't take anything personally in nursing. It's not about you. And so you kind of learn to detach yourself because things are happening to people that you have zero control over and you can't take responsibility for. Your job is to problem solve and to get them to wherever they need to be next, you know, and to have, you kind of have to be calm in the chaos. That's just a trait. And I think I'm lucky that I've had that. So nothing phases me. I just replaced a dishwasher, a stove, and a fridge for multiple houses in 1 month, which I'm like, is this like repair month or something? Everything's just breaking. And then of course, you know, delivering, getting the stuff remotely done. You know, I'm not tripping out about it. Number one, because I know the territory of what we are in. But the second part is every problem has a solution. A friend of mine told me there's a lid for every pot. But then another friend was like, unless you're a vase. And then I thought that was just a funny saying. And this was in reference to like relationships, right? But I also think in terms of problems, you know, it is what it is. You can choose, your attitude's going to dictate how well you take it. So I try to have a good positive attitude. Like it's fixes are inevitable, problems come up, but you know, we'll get through it. And I think a lot of my team members, they like how calm I am. Like I don't trip out about when things go wrong. It's just like, okay, well, let's fix it. And then let's talk about if there's anything that we can do on our side and take ownership of so that we can either prevent it or, you know, what should we do? Or is it just like, it was just time for that thing to be replaced, something like that. So that's where I said my training comes from is just nursing and being in that role for quite a long time.
Sure. Speaking of time, I'm curious how you balance your time. So you have, like me, you know, multiple things happening in your world on a day-to-day basis. What does a typical day look like for Stephanie and how do you balance everything?
Man, you know what? It's a funny question because I get it all the time. My day looks different every day. I think it's kind of also the fun of being an entrepreneur. It's never boring. I always got something going on. But I find myself nowadays trying to consolidate and slow down and really put my time and energy in the right places. So to be honest, the first thing is I don't do it all by myself anymore. I have embraced the who, not how mentality.
Amen,
yes. You know, James Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy had it in that book. And that's just one of many books. So I truly embrace, you know, I'm not going to do everything, but it's my job to delegate it, convey it to, you know, the best of my abilities and then just let it run. So, between like I'm an agent. I have my virtual assistant agency. I have my rentals, that we self-manage. I have my own community as well, that we've grown for STR Nation. And I honestly just handle it all one at a time. And I just delegate and have a lot of help. I have like my own fixers that I'm burring right now. My partner does more of the project management, but I handle acquisitions and offloading if it's a flip instead of like a buy and hold. And I just one at a time, but I'm actually starting to consolidate more, to be honest. And I think that's just maybe the phase where I'm at in my life. I'm not always trying to do something, but I'll do what needs to be done is kind of like my motto.
I love it. I'm curious if someone were maybe just starting out or maybe even has their first unit or maybe their first two and hasn't really thought about themselves being a leader. Maybe they are looking to make an adjustment in their perspective of themselves. What words of wisdom would you have for them?
Ooh, great one. So I think a lot of us are like that in the beginning. We just want to get started and we just want to get traction. And we'll figure it all out later. That was me. That's still me. To be honest, I think it's probably all of us. But if I were to tell somebody from the get-go, it is much easier to do things, as properly as you can in the beginning, but don't let that hold you back from, taking action. So imperfect action is more important than no action at all, right? But I would honestly wish I was way more organized from the get-go and just really understood business first. Because I think if a lot of real estate investors really treated themselves like business owners from the very beginning, it would save so much headache later on.
I agree.
There's so many parts to the puzzle, and I didn't learn this until I was doing it and then realizing, marketing is a thing. Now it's HR is a thing. And when you start to build a team, and I'm like, well, financial revenue management's another thing. You don't think about that in the beginning. So getting that underlying business mentality started in addition to understanding like short-term rentals, real estate as a whole, you combine the two of those things. And I think that's where a lot of people they see this later. You would be such an unstoppable force if you got that like figured out from the get-go and embrace this from like the start. I wish I did that, but nobody told me because I didn't really, I learned it on my own, stumbled through it.
Yeah, it's funny. So I, years ago, put together a short-term rental fundamentals course, and it was all about the 4 pillars of short-term rentals. And I still believe that to be true. The first one is real estate investing. Second is hospitality. Third is marketing. Fourth is entrepreneurship. Like it is a whole thing. It's not one little piece of the puzzle. It's not one little pillar. And I see so many people that maybe have invested in the hospitality ends of things. Okay, we've got amazing coffee bars and the best sheets ever, but they're neglecting the other aspects of this business. So I love that you've got that holistic approach as well.
Yes, holistic. That's exactly it right there.
Okay, so I want to move to the lightning round. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a few questions and ask you to answer with the very first thing that comes to mind. First question is, where is your favorite place to vacation?
Oh my gosh, Asia. I love Asia.
Okay, so that's a big place.
I know.
So tell me, give me more specifics here.
I actually recently went to Singapore and the Philippines. I can't choose which one I liked more, but I definitely want to go back. So those are my favorites. And Hawaii, which is just like the Philippines.
Yes. Oh my gosh, Hawaii is beautiful. What's your favorite island in Hawaii?
Probably, I'm thinking Oahu. I actually like Oahu. I have family over there too.
Oh, that's a rough thing to have to go visit them every once in a blue moon, right?
I know. I like Oahu. There's always stuff to do over there.
There you go. All right. What's one place you've never been that you want to visit?
Japan. I really want to go. That's like my next international trip is Japan.
There you go. I've heard so many people say that they've been to Japan and just fell in love with it. Like, absolutely love it. That's cool.
I almost feel like I want to move there and I haven't even been there yet.
Well, we might not want to go that far yet.
I'll visit first.
There you go. All right. Next question. You kind of already answered this, but I'll ask this because it's a lightning round question. I have to ask it, right? What's one thing you know now that you wished you knew when you were starting out in short-term rentals?
Oh, I wish I knew like the business part about it. Like if I were to set myself up like, all right, I'm going to educate myself in tax. I did do this, but taxes, I would like to educate myself in leadership. I'd educate myself in like banking and just having like basically business 101. I wish I would have figured that out from the start. And I feel like that would have made my STR journey much smoother than me having to play catch up and redo everything because I just didn't do it right in the beginning. But I did it. So
good. I mean, that's a great answer. And I think it's very relatable to a lot of people, right? All right, next question. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Ooh, that's a, you know what? Mindset is everything. That was probably, it's it. If you don't have it right up here, it doesn't matter. So, and if you have it right up here, it still doesn't matter. So getting your mindset right from the, just in general is like everything. That's like the best piece of advice. It's not about the technical skills. It's about where your mind's at.
Love it, girl. Love it. Preach it. Preach it. All right. Last question. What's one thing and or person that you're grateful for today?
Oh, you know, I'd say my parents. My parents are on vacation in Europe right now. But, you know, I'm really grateful because they have been the biggest role models for me. They came from, you know, they were immigrants, came from the Philippines to the States. And my God, they really did, like, they're the embodiment of the American dream. And they motivate me all the time because they tell me, you're going to surpass us. And I'm like, okay. So I'd say them. That's who I'd pick right now.
Aww. Well, Mom and Dad, we hope you listen to this episode.
I know, right? I'm like, you have to listen. I'm giving you a shout out, like right now.
Right. That's right. Stephanie, this was so fun. I just appreciate you being with us. And it's so amazing to hear about your journey and evolution. And you're an inspiration to many. So thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Stacy, for having me. It's always fun. I mean, this is fun. I could probably keep talking. We're very similar. Literally, I am a recovering perfectionist. I never thought about it like that until you said it. But I'm like, that is me. I feel seen. That is me.
There you go. There you go. All right. 2 recovering perfectionists. We're out. Bye. Now, before you go, I just want to give a quick shout out to all of the amazing women inside the Female Short-Term Rental Investors Facebook group. If you are not in it, girlfriend, you need to be there. Just about 20 hours ago, at the time of this recording, I saw a post that was actually sent out by an anonymous member. And she says, we are in Western North Carolina, the area hit hard by Helene. We are lucky to have our family and house in one piece, but we are worried about our future. As many locals, I was relying on my basement apartment and one more little house short-term rental. Now that business is completely down, no water, no power, but easy access. We don't even want to host now because resources are scarce. Better for people not to come unless they want to help. Does anyone know any resources? We're almost 100% Airbnb and it seems they don't care. We were 100% booked and everything is canceled. We are left in the air. 61 women have jumped in so far to share their feedback. One of my dear friends, Beata, says, if your house is intact, you'll have no problems renting it to displaced homeowners and to crews who will be there to rebuild. It will be a pivot, but I have no doubt you'll succeed. Tammy Littlejohn also posted and says, change your description to say insurance adjusters, relief workers, long-term rates available. Such great advice, Beata, Tammy. Thank you so much for sharing those words of wisdom. And again, our hearts go out to everyone impacted by Hurricane Helene. We are praying for you. We are with you. And with that, that wraps up today's episode. Have an amazing week.